The Kansas City Chiefs have officially been eliminated from the playoffs. This is uncharted water we're in right now. In the Patrick Mahomes era, they have made it to at least the AFC Championship game in every single season. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Katie Caldwell. This is Jeff Lloyd. Jeff, you and I have been down on the Chiefs all season, but when it came down to them missing the postseason, we said we'd believe it when we see it because it's the Chiefs. With the loss and the injury to Mahomes, it feels like this was worst case scenario for them.
Yeah, I mean, I know over the summer we maybe thought there was going to be maybe a little bit of a balance shift, if you will,
Right.
in the AFC West. Certainly, neither of us were to the point where we thought we were going to be talking about a January where the Kansas City Chiefs were watching. And
Or a
certainly,
Christmas Day where they're watching even.
100%. And, and now you throw into the fact, unfortunately, the worst possible scenario for a team where this year is over, there's already now basically when is Patrick Mahomes available for 2026? So,
Mhm.
for one season to end badly is great, but for it to have such an effect on maybe what will be the next season, certainly, is it for even for any of those. And look, there's been dynasties, obviously, the Patriots, the
Mhm.
Chiefs, and then I think some people just grow so fed up with it, but I don't think anybody in their heart of hearts was like, "Oh, man, not like that." You don't wanna see it go down like that.
Right.
The Chargers were gonna probably win that game yesterday anyway. Um, for the Chiefs, it's been an incredible run. It's been a monumental run.
Mhm.
There's certainly a lot of change probably coming towards that organization. But to be fair, the Chiefs, it's kind of some things have gotten masked over the last few years that they just worked their way out. Everybody
Right.
with the offensive line issues, this has been an ongoing theme for years in Kansas City. This was the one year it really just absolutely just came back to bite them.
Mhm.
Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt came in last year. He was a big key cog in the running game. I think they ran the ball yesterday for 2.3 yards per carry. It's something that was an issue for them the entire season. And as great as Patrick Mahomes is, or any quarterback is, if there is no threat of a running game in any way whatsoever,
Right.
real easy to defend them. It really is. The defense, now that's also going to be some issues. We're talking about Chris Jones. Chris Jones is only here really because this has been a hey, we can't walk away from the fact that we go to the title game every year. I
Yeah.
think it became like an unwritten code between some of those guys. And now that that's over, a guy like Chris Jones, probably not retirement yet, but it'll be certainly different, I think, for Chris Jones. Travis Kelsey, you're always looking, when is the right time for me to step away? I don't think there's a better time than right now. Obviously, we all know about his personal life. We all know about the
Mhm.
plans for the summer. And we all know that honestly, once Travis Kelsey and his brother started, their show together, Travis Kelsey probably could have walked away the game at any point. He could have
Right.
just called it a day then because obviously, they have progressed to such great heights, with what they're doing off the field. It also brings up a question, Andy Reid, and that's another
Mhm.
one. Did he continue to stay on? Because nobody wants to be the one to break that chain first. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Nobody wants to be the one to leave the nest when things are going so good. Now, obviously, a whole bunch of set of different circumstances. I also think, though, when we talk about this, it's not like all of a sudden, I think the Chiefs aren't a playoff contender in 2026.
Mm.
Patrick Mahomes turns 31 in September. So now it becomes the back nine of his career. And I'm not saying like another 18, the back nine. So there's no reason to think. The offensive line issues, a lot of guys got hurt. They're going
Mhm.
to get healthy. You can add a running back. You can maybe simplify. And I think part of it was chasing getting as much as you could because you felt like you had to get back to the AFC title game. You had to get back to the
Right.
Super Bowl. So now it's more about, a vision of, well, what's best for us a year or two from now, not what gets us back to where we have always been every single year. And it allows for the entire organization to maybe get outside, think things a little differently, view things a little differently, and maybe structure the organization a little bit differently because it's not so dependent on the now as opposed to
Mhm.
now maybe where it comes, the future and what is best for the organization. It's definitely a sad ending. And, for Holmes, no, you don't want to see any look, you never want to see anybody go down. But once you get to December and guys go down with, an Achilles or an ACL, all of a sudden now we start talking about the next season. And,
Yes.
that's tough. A guy goes down in September, it stinks, obviously. But that guy knows he's ready to go by the beginning of next season. That's maybe not
Mhm.
necessarily where the Chiefs are going to be at with all this. And the AFC West, you got to give credit to Denver. You got to give credit to the Chargers. These teams have been plucking it out for years. And,
Mhm.
how hard is it to build your team with we got to knock these guys out of here. I've been going to the AFC Championship game for what, 7, 8 years in a row. And,
Yeah.
kudos to them. They finally have, climbed the mountain, kind of broke the back. And unfortunately for Kansas City, it broke a little bit more than they were anticipating.
Quick pause. If you haven't subscribed to the BetCanada YouTube channel, you can do so below. It's free and it helps support our channel so we can keep bringing you NFL and NHL content. Now, back to the show. You touched on this, Jeff. Is Andy Reid in trouble here? Do you have any questions about this coaching staff, or is this just a matter of closing the book on this season and moving forward with that same coaching staff?
Well, I think the question now again is, was anybody ever looking for a change? Was anybody, you got coordinators there and their names are always mentioned with potential openings. But the thing is, when you're the coordinator on a team that goes to the championship game, goes to the Super Bowl, wins many Super Bowls, that's some really, really good money. It's some really good
Yes.
money. And you want to know what? It's a lot of less stress when you're only the coordinator and not the head coach. And, Andy's had two amazingly long runs in Philadelphia, in Kansas City. And, you don't want to ever, basically, walk away on your guys. And certainly when things are good, nobody walks away from, when good things are good. Nobody ever walks away. Why do things end? Usually they end because they end badly. That's why things end.
Right. It's
So
true.
this could be the time where the Chiefs, and even a couple of years ago, Chris Jones got an extension that nobody saw coming. But also, I think
Yes.
that was partly because the Chiefs said, we need him. And yes, we might have to pay a little bit more than we want to, but how do
Mhm.
we look at the rest of the guys in that locker room and say, all right, well, you got yours, you got yours, you got yours, but we decided Chris Jones wasn't going to get his. And, it's those types of things. And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, every fandom would say, well, oh, I don't care. You want to keep that franchise going for as long as you possibly can.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, this is, it's now over, or at least it's 1 year detoured. And, sometimes you don't realize that things maybe need fixing, or there's a fracture, or things might be even broken,
Mhm.
because success will shrimp it and it will cover it up and it will mask it. But now when this team realizes, we're playing 3 games, that's it. Nothing matters. We're getting these 3 games, and
Yeah.
it's going to really weird that the Kansas City Chiefs guys are going to be the first ones to Cancun in the offseason. We're not really too familiar with that. Usually everybody's Cancuned out by the time the Chiefs
Yeah.
are actually ready to go to Cancun. Um, so it's gonna be a shift, but there's still some great pieces there, Rasheed
Mhm.
Rice and Patrick Mahomes, and there's some younger guys that are probably gonna get a bigger opportunity. And, first time in a long time, they're probably going to have a high draft pick. They
Mhm.
certainly have to address the running game. Certainly probably have to figure out defense a little bit. They really need, as great as Chris Jones is, they really need an established outside rusher as well. One doesn't necessarily work without the other. But again, now you can step back and look at what's good for the future as opposed to just trying to keep the line moving.
It just feels so everything feels so different since the preview video we did about this game earlier, in the week. On the other side of things, what did this win tell you about the Chargers? Because I feel a lot of the focus here is on Mahomes and the Chiefs, and I completely understand that, but man, they have a decimated offensive line. They just keep finding ways to win, and I also wanna give them their flowers for this defense. It was yet another impressive performance by this defense. What were your takeaways from the Chargers in this one?
Well, I mean, first things that just rings out to you is 5 sacks. And, look,
Mhm.
this is the time of year, and look, rushing the passer, it's the most important thing as far as defense is concerned in the NFL. It will mask so many warts. Not that the Chargers have them. They do not. But when you are putting the quarterback on the ground as often as the Los Angeles Chargers are, that's certainly going to make your life a lot easier. I think what I liked about this from the Charger standpoint is, this was a roll in the mud, throw some fists, 16-13 on the road. And
Mhm.
regardless, that it was Gardner Minshew at the end, interception to clinch it, Derwin James. And, for the Chargers, that's 4 wins in this AFC West. Started the
Yep.
season with 3. Here's another one today. And I think they're starting to get back. And look, you're not going to get those offensive linemen back. Unfortunately, you're just not.
Right.
And I don't think they're gonna run the ball with a great amount of success, but I think they have enough at the running back position right now where you can run it and I don't want to necessarily say this for running it for the sake of running it, but there should be some success from it. Look, Herbert has all the
Mm,
weapons he needs. And,
yep.
right now you're just doing your best. You got to get these W's. Obviously, for the Chargers, most likely you were shooting for the 5 seed, which is going to seem really disingenuous for where their overall record might finish up. But that's
Yeah.
just a fact of the matter. But, you're going to have to get on the road. You want Herbert as healthy as possible because you're just going to hopefully go back to, Herbert and these guys just, tossing the ball around everywhere. And the thing with the Chargers is it's a pretty simple recipe. If they can get up on top of people, they have the defense now that should be able to
Mhm.
hold the lead for them. So for the Chargers, it's been a really nice run. And I think this season, it started obviously overseas week 1 with a win over the Chiefs, basically ended the Chiefs season yesterday and really pronounced to the rest of the AFC that even though they're going to be a wild card team, they are going to be one of the toughest outs in the entire AFC.
How much of a run do we think they could make this season? Like, what is their ceiling? Because what this team doesn't look perfect by any means. But then when I look around the AFC, I think a lot of these teams do have liabilities.
Well, I mean, you look at it week 1 in the playoffs, most likely what would it be? A road game against the AFC South, against the AFC North? Okay. I'll definitely put my house money on the Chargers in either one of those contests. And
Exactly.
then, then you gotta start going to play, with, the Bills will probably be into that mix. Yeah, we'll see how that works out for them. And then you basically have a couple of newcomers who are going to be
Mhm.
hosting some meaningful playoff games, and most likely the Patriots and most likely the Denver Broncos. And, for the Chargers, well coached, they've been in the playoffs last 2 years. Nothing's too big for them. So,
Mhm.
overall, I think it's gonna be a really fun playoff run in the AFC because I think it's gonna be a lot different this year. You have Baltimore hanging on, by a thread.
Yeah.
The AFC South, if it's Jacksonville, I don't think anybody's got a real ton of confidence there. And again, your top 2 seeds, are basically gonna be the kids in May and of course in, Bo Nix, who's just been absolutely fantastic over the last few weeks.